There are people out there who would care about your game if they only knew about your game. Finding those people can be hard. TIGSource has been a major influence in the indie dev scene. Now it's posted early work of Minecraft on TIGSource forums. In fact, there's been quite a few successful games that have had their origins on the TIGSource forums. But is TIGSource still worth the effort? Being a game dev is time-consuming, and TIGSource seems to be showing signs of its age. So is posting to TIGSource still worth it? To answer that question, I tested and collected data. Each week I would post a new dev blog update. To avoid other influences, I only posted my update to TIGSource. My process changed over months of my post. I started out only by tracking additional YouTube views for each post, but view count alone doesn't tell the full story. You could get numerous views, but if it takes hours of preparation, then the effort may not be worth it. So I started tracking the total time it took to make a new post. After a while, I started experimenting with my format of my posts, when I posted them, and other variables. I started collecting additional data. So how does TIGSource fare these days? TIGSource still has a layout similar to the old websites of the 2000s. Content is centered on the screen, perhaps because that was a time before widescreen monitors were ubiquitous. There's a couple of tabs available on the home page. The primary place you'll be visiting is the TIG Forums. That is where all the life is. And there is still plenty of activity on the forums. Some of the other tabs have not been updated in a long time. Some have not been updated for over a decade. Signing up for the forums is easy enough, but there are a few steps. Click register, answer the bot eliminating questions, validate your email, and check the forum rules. To avoid spammers, TIG wants people to be active in the community. That's pretty reasonable. I was worried I might be breaking the rules since I had already started my dev blog, but wanted to post it from the beginning. So I messaged the moderator before posting to ensure I wasn't breaking any rules. The mod got back to me quickly and everything was fine. But just to be safe, I commented on some other blogs to be a part of the community. To avoid drive-by advertising, you're only allowed to post your game in the town hall once to avoid spamming. But you need to have some other posts first. Advertising your game on your first post will get you labeled as spam. I mostly posted in the dev blogs forum, and then updated my thread each time I had an update. In addition to the forum, there's also a Discord server associated with the website. There's a lot of activity there, perhaps even more than on the forums. But first, let's focus on the forums. The post user experience. Start a post. The forum supports entering plain text. You'll have to click the preview to see what the post will actually look like. The preview doesn't work for certain things, like embedded YouTube videos. You have to post, then edit the post if it doesn't look quite right. You can quote other people's posts to learn about syntax for doing certain things. For example, I learned how to embed GIFs with the image tag by quoting someone else's post that had GIFs in them, and then looking at the resulting generated post. I collected a lot of data. Changing YouTube views, changing the forum post views, day of the week the forum post was made, durations of preparation time and posting time, the titles of the posts. I tracked when I made changes to my posting methodology. Before I talk about optimizing these posts, let's look at the raw data. This data will be available in the video description. Here are the results. TIGSource tells you the total views your forum post gets. I wasn't aware of this initially, so I only have data for some of the later posts. The average views per post was 92.4 from update 18 and onwards. Of the posts I have data for, the lowest was 60 post views, and the highest was 127 post views for an update. However, I have the total views for the first 17 updates, which was 2,637. 2,637 divided by 17 is an average of 155 post views per post. This is higher than the average of the later posts. I suspect that your first few posts will have more views than the later posts. So perhaps it is worth it to put relatively more effort into your first post, but this is just speculation. Forum post views are nice, but I imagine some of them are web scraper bots. I don't imagine the bots, at least currently, are watching YouTube videos. Each of my posts contain a video, and I can look at the number of views in the YouTube creator dashboard to give me an idea of how much YouTube traffic was generated from a post. Perhaps this eliminates some of the bots, but it also eliminates anyone who viewed the post but chose to only read the text instead of watching the video. The views for YouTube were significantly lower than the forum post views. The average YouTube views generated during the first week of a post was 7.81 views. The median was 7 and the mode was 7. The maximum views was 25 for the first video. Excluding the first two videos, which seemed to have abnormally good performance, the maximum views was 15 for update 19. The minimum number of YouTube views for a post was 1. After that, it was a set of a couple threes. I also recorded the second week's post views. The second week generally occurred after a new post had been made, so there wasn't as much new views there. I tried to make a post each week, though some weeks I wasn't able to. In general, the second week for posts did not do well, even after optimizations. The average YouTube video views during a post's second week was 2.12. The median was 1 and the mode was 0. The maximum was 6, excluding the first 2 posts, which were abnormally high. The first post was 16 and the second post was 7 views. The minimum views for a second week was 0. If we sum the first 2 weeks, we have an average views of 9.88, a median views of 8, and a mode of the views is 8. So on average, a post would get you about 10 views per forum post. Another important factor in determining if you should put effort into posting on a site is the amount of time it takes you to prepare and post on that site. Since we always have very limited time, how long a post takes to generate should be a factor in your decision to use a website. Fortunately for me, the post descriptions were already made as they were nearly the same as my YouTube descriptions. So I just needed to clean them up slightly, and I could just post a video and my YouTube description as the forum's text. The interface for making a post was easy enough and did not consume too much time. I separated timings into 2 categories. 1, how long it took to gather and prepare the data for a post. 2, how long it took to actually input the data into the website and make the post. Preparation time mostly consisted of logging into YouTube, finding the video, and copying the information from it. Prep time was not too involved. Making a post involved formatting the text of the post, since it copied over with weird new lines. It also included time to go to the Discord server and make a post there. Unfortunately, the idea of recording timing data did not occur to me until much later in the data gathering process, so I only have 3 sample points. Post 24 has 4 minutes prep time and 6 minutes post time, totaling 10 minutes to make an update on the website. My final update had 10 minutes prep time and 20 minutes post time, totaling 30 minutes. Though reflecting on how long these posts actually took, I would say the 4 minutes prep time and 6 minutes post time was closer to the average time it took to make a post. The last timings were inflated a bit because I wanted to make the post extra nice for the final update. Over time, there were a couple of changes I made to my posting methodology. By the time I made my 4th update, the video was buried deep into the forums thread. To see the new content, you would have to scroll down far into the post, making it less discoverable. To mitigate this discoverability issue, I updated the first post to contain a section for the most recent update. I retained the original post first, below the most recent update section. I also posted the new update as a reply on the thread to keep a consistent timeline. Posting it as a reply also brought my new thread back up to the first page of the devblog forum section. This change seemed to have a strong effect on YouTube views. The post before making this change only received 1 video view. The post after this change received 8 views, an 8x increase. Notice that each post after making this change received more views. None of them ever had the issue of only getting 1 or 0 views. However, the change in views for the second week would often be 0. I think this is because the new post occupied the spotlight of being in the most recent update section of my first post. But I don't have a way to test that it wasn't just due to it being an older content, so I'm just speculating. I noticed that you can update the title of your forum post. I figure, as a viewer of the devblog community, if you see the same name post on the front page, you may not realize there is an update. You might think it is just people commenting on an older thread. So I changed my methodology again and started editing the current updates into the title of the forum post. That way, people will see something different when browsing the devblog forum section. As for the data, I made this change shortly after the first change in methodology. There was only 1 post in between, so it is hard to make a judgment on whether this made any difference in YouTube views. The next post received the same amount of YouTube views as the previous post, suggesting no change. But I liked having the new text show up in the community view of the forum, so I kept this methodology for the remainder of my post. Later, I tweaked the title slightly again. Before, I had the format of having the project's name and then the updated information. I tweaked the way I updated the title so that the update came before the name of the project, and hoped that it might appear more new to the viewer. However, it did not seem to have any demonstrable change on YouTube views, but I liked it better this way, so I continued with this approach. Around my 10th update, I noticed that TIGSource has a Discord server, so I figured I might as well post there too. Specifically, I posted in the Working in Progress Games section. My first post that was also in the Discord server did do relatively better than the last 3 posts. However, the next few posts do not do as well as my first post that also included Discord. But the following posts, where I also post in Discord, do better than those without Discord. so I continued to post updates in Discord in addition to the forum. When my new post required going to a second page on the forum, I was worried it would hurt discoverability, but I did not observe any negative impact on YouTube views. Most likely, this was mitigated by updating the very first post with the newest update. Before we get to conclusions, there's some disclaimers I should disclose. It is technically possible that some views came from natural YouTube traffic, though the natural YouTube traffic seemed to have died off for most of these videos before I made any of the dev blog posts to TIGSource. The first video in the series, however, did get some natural YouTube traffic, it seems, which is probably why the first post was so high in views compared to the others. It was inflated from natural YouTube traffic. After I had a significant number of posts, I started posting on other sites. That is, at update 12, I started posting update 1 to another site. And then later, at update 22, I started posting update 1 on a different site. I believe there was little to no contribution from these sites on the currently posted devlog on TIGSource, since they were spaced so far apart. But it is possible that it had some sort of influence, though I did not see anything from the data. I did not collect data on video retention, mostly because I didn't think of a way to separate this out for the post time frame. Additionally, I only summed up the first 2 weeks that I posted was on TIGSource. It is possible I got more views at a later date, but those were not reflected in the data I gathered. But the performance of the second week suggests to me that any additional views after the second week of posting would be negligible. In conclusion, on average, you will get around 90 forum views per forum post with my optimizations. The average views for the first 2 weeks is 9.88 views. The median views was 8. The total preparation for the post time for me was about 10 minutes. That included copying the descriptions from my prepared YouTube videos. That 10 minutes included writing and posting to the forum. That 10 minutes also included posting to Discord. I believe in practice the total timing was actually less than 10 minutes, but I don't have the data for the timing of most of my posts. My opinion is that TIGSource can still generate some awareness for your game. While some of the post views might be web scraper bots, perhaps that helps with search engine optimization. It is one more site referencing your game for Google to index. Roughly 10 additional views on YouTube per post does not seem like that much of a benefit. But when starting a YouTube channel, you will find that it is difficult to get natural traffic, so 10 views starting out may be a large percentage. For example, with roughly 1,000 subscribers, a video I posted to a game jam got only about 30 views over 2 years. Had I posted to TIGSource and gained roughly 10 views, that would have been an additional roughly 33% of the total views for that video, so it would have been worth it in that case, for me. TIGSource also still has a living community between its forums and Discord server, so there are benefits in being part of that community, which are not represented in additional view count numbers. The most time-consuming part of posting to TIGSource was actually the collection of this data. I hope that it helps inform you on your journey of making games. So until next time, see ya.